Is it a sewing machine? Is it one of those machines from that weird Will Smith movie where he walks around all depressed trying to sell machines to doctors? No, it's not any of those things. This is a Compaq portable. The first 100% compatible IBM PC, as well as the first portable IBM compatible PC ever produced. It was kind of a twofer when it was released. And yes, I can hear your comments being typed right now.
Yeah, no, it actually wasn't 100% IBM compatible. And
Yeah, shut up. We all know that, or at least if you read the information on the web that's on these machines, you would know that it is not. They never technically claimed it to be 100% compatible, but good enough. It was good enough. And of course, I believe Compaq was one of the first companies to, or maybe it was Hyperion, that made use of Microsoft's clever licensing agreement with IBM, where they stipulated to IBM as they were pitching this new great operating system that, oh wait, you don't have exclusive rights to this software. We can sell it to or license it to whomever we choose. And Compaq was like, hey, we'll take it. This was Compaq's first product. Although this is not the first of the first Compaq portables. This was made 2 years after they were introduced. They were introduced in 1983. This sucker was made in August of 85. So it's not the first. And it's not in its original configuration. I have no idea what's in it for hardware, but I do know that there have been some add-on cards added to it at some point in its life. Yes, it's a portable computer with 8-bit expansion slots. This was not a laptop unless you were a massive human being and you had bones of steel. This thing weighed a whopping 28 pounds. In its base configuration. And on this side, come on now. I'm gonna have to do some, there we go, lubrication of the, that sounded awful. On this side we've got our power supply, we've got our expansion slots on this side, and where's the keyboard, where's the screen, where are the floppy drives? Well, let's take a look. Okay, so here we go. Let's get started. So this machine, we're going to talk a little bit. Yes, I know some of you hate this, some of you love it. I try to talk about the history of the items that I make videos of, and well, this one is a pretty, not a long story. I'll try to keep it short. So my first experience with the Compaq portable was in the mid-1990s. Now I have this uncle, and we all love him somehow. He's kind of a shyster type. And in other words, he's always looking for get-rich-quick schemes and always looking for, he's not the brightest. But in the mid-90s, he was looking to acquire a computer that he had no need for or had any knowledge of or how to use or anything. He wanted a computer, and he still lived with my grandparents at the time, and he was in his mid-20s, I believe. So he was buying computers up from these shady shops around town, and he brought home some really cool stuff. It wasn't cool in the mid-90s, but it would be worth serious money now, or it would be quite collectible anyway, if not monetarily. One time he brought home an original Radio Shack TRS 80, one of the business class machines they made with the 8-inch floppy disks. He also had like several cases of brand new shrink wrapped 8-inch floppy disks. He ended up throwing the machine away along with all the floppy disks. Now this is like in 95, 96. Today those floppy disks would probably be worth a few bucks, if not the machine itself. We could never figure out how to make the machine do anything. It just had a blinking cursor, and nobody in my family knew DOS. It wasn't until about a year or so later that I learned DOS, and I could have made it sing, although it didn't run DOS. I don't really know anything about TRS-80s or any of those machines. I don't know anything about them, so don't shoot me, okay? All right. Then he goes and brings home one of these, a Compaq Portable Plus. The Compaq Portable Plus was the base Compaq Portable with a hard drive. It had a 10 megabyte full height hard drive and one floppy drive, one full height 360K floppy drive. And it ran DOS and it had a couple of games on it, but he set it up in my grandparents' bedroom like my grandmother is going to use it for something, and it never got used and eventually got thrown away. I had no say in any of this. It wasn't my computer, it was his, and he could do whatever the hell he wants. And then he drags home a Wang. A freaking Wang. This guy was a loose cannon and didn't know his ass from his elbows. So he was just bringing home random computers, hoping one of them had Windows on it or something. I don't know what he was thinking. But I do wish that I had the foresight to speak up and say, hey, you know, I'll take that off your hands. Yeah, okay. Anyway, but I didn't. I was what was I, 10, 12 years old then? Anyway. So, this Compaq Portable it actually showed up on my doorstep. No, I'm serious. That's it was on my doorstep when I came home last night. And the deal is, here's the story behind this one. So this one belonged to one of my high school friends. And after he graduated college, I haven't really seen him much. It's been a few years. Now, I graduated in 2003, so I think it was around 2002, 2001 that I last saw this sucker in operation, and it was in his parents' basement. He had a room full of old computers and stuff, and he got this one. I forget where he said he got this. I think it either came from his uncle or his grandfather. I'm not positive where it came from. But he wanted me to check it out because he knew that I was interested in vintage computer stuff even back then. So he was showing this thing to me. Now this was back in 2001 or so. And quite a few years ago actually. Wow. Man, time flies. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so we got it fired up. And I don't remember, there was some major problem with this machine and we couldn't really do anything with it. We're like, oh, whatever, we'll just... So he set it aside and we were going to fix it or something. I tried getting him to sell it to me because I kind of wanted it. And because I've always liked these old portables. They're pretty neat machines when you really get to know them. But we couldn't get it working. I forget what was wrong with it. And I don't even remember what kind of configuration it had. It's been so many years. I don't know if there's a hard drive in it. But let's take a look. Let's put it on its working mode. So right now it's in transportable mode. These were designed to fit on an airline luggage compartment. They weigh about 28 pounds. And this was if you wanted a portable DOS compatible machine, this is what you bought. I think they sold for between $3,000 to $5,000. In 1980s money. So yeah, they weren't cheap, but no computer really was, unless you were looking at Radio Shack stuff for the home. If you needed a computer for your home, this is not the one you bought. This is a computer that was really built for the business traveler, someone who really needed to bring their work home with them, and they didn't have a computer at home, or they needed to use the same machine for some reason. Now there's some really cool flip down feet underneath. I don't know if you can see that. And they give it a nice little angle, like that. It's made from ABS plastic, and it's not in perfect condition, but it has some condition issues that I can fix pretty easily, I think, and I will do that. You'll notice that there's all these black scuff marks in the bottom. This will come off with a magic eraser. Unfortunately, I'm in the middle of moving, and I don't have any of that stuff here. I packed away most of my cleaning stuff. I just have the bare minimum to live here until I close in about a month or so. So anyway, a little limited. So we're not going to do anything with this machine in terms of making any changes to it or restoring it. I'm just not equipped to do that right now. So the keyboard is actually the bottom of the system when it's in transport mode. And you just push these little tabs in, the keyboard comes off like that, and there you are. So this one has two 5 1/4 inch floppy drives, and now there's no internal hard drive bay on these, so that tells me that this more than likely is just a floppy-based machine, no hard drive. And it's not a portable plus, so we know that it didn't ship with a hard drive, so that kind of narrows it down. I'm going to take these floppy disks out. Let's take a look at what's in here. Looks like we have a copy of Monopoly. Reasonable Solutions, 2101 West Main Street, Medford, Oregon. And we've got a copy of DOS 3.2 LE. So let's leave these out for a second. Let's turn it on, see if it gives us a memory count and a disk seek. This thing hasn't been turned on since 2001, as far as I know. I'm not even bullshitting you. This thing has been sitting a long time. So I don't know what to expect. Runs on a standard 3-pin Molex power connector. As far as I know, the internal power supply is what they call a linear power supply, meaning it's not a switch mode power supply. That's one of the reasons it's so big and heavy. Switch mode power supplies, which is what's used on basically everything today, they basically divide the current using a series of it basically oscillates. So it shuts off and turns on, shuts off, turns on, shuts off, turns on, to cut 120 volts down to maybe 12 or 5 volts. So it just cycles on and off, kind of switch mode, and then it uses, I believe, a diode bridge to convert the AC current to DC. That's how modern power supplies work. Now this one would have used a heavy-duty transformer to cut the AC voltage down to whatever working voltages it needed. Anyway, so we've got a built-in 12-inch CRT, monochrome green, and our brightness control is right here on the side. So let me move the camera closer so you can get a better look at it. This is the most 80s looking computer I think I have in my collection right now. And it defined portable computing. Well, not really. I'm talking it up. Let's just turn the damn thing on. Hear a fan. Ooh. I hear a hard drive. Okay, did not expect that. Let me lower the camera real quick and we'll get a better look at this machine. Okay. So I have a blinking cursor, but I have nothing else. Not a good sign. I don't know. I haven't used one of these in a long time. One thing I do know, that these were known for ghosting. The video refresh rate is very low, which creates a ghosting effect. I remember that from the one my grandmother had. I thought it was odd. Okay. Beep. Okay, we're doing a disk seek, and hey, it booted into a C prompt. So this sucker has a hard drive and it works. That was not expected. I really wasn't planning on that. Well, that's good news. I know there was something wrong with it, and I somehow I think it was something with the CRT chassis, but it doesn't look broken to me. In fact, when I crank the brightness all the way up, it does blur a little bit, but that's an easily correctable thing. It could require a recap, but it doesn't have any scan lines, which is what you typically would see in a faulty CRT chassis. You'll start to see diagonal lines appear. It doesn't have that problem. In fact, it looks pretty clean otherwise. We'll see what's on the drive. Oh, okay, we have keyboard problems. I have no backspace key, no return key. Looks like very few keys actually. D doesn't work. And that reminds me of one of the... I can't really do much here. That sucks. Well, alright, so we know there's a problem with the keyboard at least. That's unfortunate. Well, I don't know what else we're going to do here. I can't hit return, and it doesn't have an... See, being an XT83 key keyboard layout, there's no enter key anywhere, so I have just that return key. It's not doing a damn thing. Well, that sucks donkey balls. Okay, well... Alright, well, no. What about Control-Alt-Delete? Does that do anything? You can see it ghosts quite a bit. Kind of a little bit of an after image there. I wonder if it'll boot off the floppy drives. So here's our DOS disk. There goes our DOS disk. can I at least get a VER on here? See what version of DOS? But yeah, I have no return key. This keyboard needs help. In a bad way. And I thought maybe the cable's bad, but they were known for two problems. One of them being the keyboard, the other one being the ghosting on the CRT. But a big problem with these Compaqs is the keyboards use a foam layer inside, and it breaks down, and those little foam granules can get caught between the key right into the keypad areas. So that is a big problem with these machines, and it is 100% fixable. I just need to fix it. But we have Control-Alt-Delete functionality. Let's see if the floppy drive works. Let's take a look at that. But yeah, I'm amazed. This thing actually boots up to a C prompt. The 30-some-year-old hard drive is still kicking. 34-year-old drive now. 33 years old, maybe? Yeah, 33. August of... So this machine would not have shipped from the factory with a hard drive, because when they did come with a hard drive, they were installed in one of these two bays. Oh, we have an A prompt. We still have no return key. What if I shake out the keyboard? Maybe... No. Nope. Nope. That's that. All right, I gotta tear this keyboard apart. I have very limited supplies on hand, so let's just take the keyboard apart and see what's going on there. So yeah, this machine was effectively. Now here's how I got this thing. So my my friend's parents had contacted him. He's living way out in California now, and he's working in a he's doing he's a propulsion, no, he's a rocket engineer or something. He does something with space exploration and engineering of rockets or I think he builds satellites. I don't know. He's doing a hell of a lot better than I am. But anyway, his parents are trying to clean out their house, and I don't know whether they're planning on moving on or what. Empty nesters, you know. So they contacted him and said, "Hey, we've got all this junk in the basement. What do you want to do with it?" And he says, "Oh yeah, there's a Compaq portable down there, and there's one person who would want that and give it a good home, and it's me. So I'm the lucky person." And so I got a call, and they're asking me, "Well, do you want this thing?" I'm like, "Hell yes." That's what I do, man. I try to breathe life into old technology, or at least prevent it from going into the trash pile, you know. So let's get this keyboard apart and take a look inside. Ooh, it looks really messy. All right, we got somebody living in there. You see him? There he is. There he goes. So it looks like we have a resident we're going to be evicting. And we've got this cable here. We're going to unplug this cable. Does that just pop in there, or how does it unlock? I don't know. It just pulls right out. There we go. Okay, so there's our keyboard cable. And we got a lot of dust in here. A lot of nasty things. Alright, unscrew it all. So it turns out they had to come up to my area for some kind of an event, and I live right across the street from an event venue. See, the ski mountain that I live across from, in the summer, they rent the facility out for weddings and stuff like that. So that way, you know, they're at least getting some money out of the facility before they open up for the ski season. So they were there, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to be in your area. Can we drop this thing off?" I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great, but I won't be home, so just leave it by the doorstep." So that's how I got it. We got a production date in here, August 13th, 1985. Here's the keyboard. Look at that circuit board. I haven't really seen one like that in a long time. This was 80s technology, but there's some crap in there. So we got to unscrew all all of these screws. All of them have to come undone. I'm not going to bother filming that. So inside this machine, now there's only two 5 1/4 inch bays. We've all figured out that, hey, there's a drive in there, a hard drive. And I want to talk about one little expansion option that was pretty popular for people who had the money to do this. And that was the hard card. This machine more than likely has what's called a hard card installed, and what it is a drive controller and hard disk drive in one. It's just a long, usually almost a full-length board, and the hard drive is literally mounted directly to the board. You couldn't have done this with a half-height or obviously a full-height drive. What they would have used were some of the first 3.5 inch sized disk drives, and they were pretty proprietary. I don't think you could take the drive off of one of these and put it in something else. The drive and the card are basically mated together, and now this won't come undone. Is there some reason why? Yeah, it looks like there's a possibility that there's a cap or a screw or something there that's holding this transistor on. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, this thing just needs to be cleaned. It's all fixable stuff. There's a plastic kind of grommety thing there. I'm gonna have to break it. Or maybe it's threaded in, but I don't think so. I think it's pressed in place so that we can't do this. They don't want. See, Compaq. Oh, it's screwed in. Look at that. Look at that. It's metal. Okay, I'm glad I didn't try to pull it apart. Now, all right, let's take a look underneath. Oh, howdy doody there. Oh, I see the problem. And it's a pretty big problem. Do you see what I see? Look at this. So the problem that we have here is these are they're foil discs mounted on foam pads. Some of these discs are corroding, but as foam often does, over time it loses its ability to rebound. So we have these little foam discs that they will not rebound. See, watch this. I'm going to press this one down with my finger. It's supposed to bounce back up like any foam would do. Watch this. Boink. And it stays down. And that creates a dead key. What doesn't help matters is this board is dirty as hell. It needs to be cleaned. But that's cleanable. That's fixable. Those discs are not going to be so easily fixable. So I'm going to find out what other people are doing to fix these Compaqs. This can be fixed. It's just a matter of, well, how much effort do I want to put into it? So let's take one of these out here. So oh wow, it just disintegrates. Look at that. The foam is just disintegrating. Look at this. This is so sad. See, in later iterations, they would have used the silicone domes. That's what they use now. But I bet you there's somebody out there making replacement. I'm going to find out. Stay tuned. I'm going to do some research. Research time. Okay, so after some brief momentary research, I have found that there is a company called TechSelect.com that produces replacement foam pads for the Keytronics keyboards, which, interestingly enough, is the same foam pad that'll work in the Compaq portable. So they're $28.99 for a set of 104, which we don't obviously need that many, but that's fine by me. So we're going to have to table this project. It may not continue until after I move, so it could be a while before we come back to this. But I'm ordering them now. That way I don't have to worry about finding them later. And I'll have a little project to do in my new home once I find and purchase one. So, with that having been said, This has been very enlightening for me. I'm just going to put a couple of screws back in place, and we'll just, I'll just put it in my storage unit, and that's where it's going to live for a little while. A little while, not too long, I hope. And yeah. It'll be fine. It'll be great. It'll be good. It'll be dandy. Let's see if I can get this lined up. But, having a fully functional portable, putting a few bucks into it, I didn't pay anything for the machine, so it owes me nothing. And these things are selling for a bit of money on eBay these days, so it's not a colossal waste. At least, not a colossal waste of money, but it's interesting. I kind of wonder how the future of PC collecting will go. I mean, as the younger generation kind of takes on the challenge, what kinds of computers will they be collecting? Because I look at it this way: a lot of the kids today will never use Windows outside of the work setting. At home they have their phones and their Chromebooks, maybe a MacBook or two. Will they ever use Windows, and will they ever use DOS? So they'll have no real personal connection to these older DOS machines like I do, and some of you that are my age and older. I'm going to wash this. Hold on. But in all seriousness, I do wonder. I mean, Chromebooks will likely never ever become collectible for any reason. I mean, they're basically they are throwaway machines. When they break, you throw them away. But we'll there's a lot of water there. I'm going to let this dry. But anyway, I mean, I seriously wonder about that. What kinds of devices will be collectible in the next 10 to 15 to 20 years? The few remaining 80s machines like this beast, will they still be around? Will there be anybody, born in the year 2000 that might actually, want to buy something like this? Or will they just be relegated to museums, kind of like horse-drawn carriages in most areas, or oil lamps? I mean, what kid today in America lights an oil lamp every day? But yeah, I do often wonder about that. And either way, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing and trying to preserve some of these classic machines and displaying them in my home. And in my new home, I'm planning on having an actual room dedicated to vintage computer equipment. It'll be nice and organized and really well thought out. And I'm not going to be a hoarder where I just buy and collect anything that I feel like. You got to make sure that the stuff that you have is in working condition. And when you have too much of it, it's hard to assure to have any assurance that that stuff will be, kept in working order. But at least we know what the problem is with this Compaq, and we'll be able to fix it for a whopping 28 bucks. Otherwise, I'd have to. There have been some gals, with their own little solutions where you take a piece of dense foam and you just spray it with adhesive and put Mylar on top of that and cut your own little circles. But that's kind of a tedious process that I really want no part in. Have a great day. And as always with my videos, there's one more thing I forgot to say. And that is, and you guys have already probably hammered this out in the comments field, I know, I get it. Capacitors. A lot of you guys want to talk about capacitors. Everything needs new capacitors, as my viewers honestly and truthfully believe. Let's talk about capacitors for a second. I'm gonna sit on my stool and address you guys from my point of view. So capacitor failures have plagued electronics that were built during the late 80s up until yesterday. Capacitors made recently were made with water-based electrolytes, and they tend to age and leak and spew guts all over the place and cause all kinds of wonderful problems. But there was a shining moment in history where they used oil-based electrolyte, and they made them to last, not maybe intentionally, but inadvertently. The way they were constructed, they were made they just lasted forever. Not always true. I mean, they did wear out, but here's an example. So I had an old arcade machine and a little cocktail table style, made in 1985, and it had all the original caps in the old Wells Gardner 13-inch CRT chassis. And I had it in my head that I was bound by law to replace every cap in that CRT chassis. And I did. I replaced them all, without even checking them for ESR. Well, the capacitors that I put in were of the modern variety, and the ones I took out were from the 80s. Every cap that I took out, I checked with an ESR meter, and they were all well within range. Perfectly fine, nothing wrong with them. I'm like, well, that's interesting. So I checked the ones I put in, some of the caps that I had left over, and they were out of range. They were out of spec. I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. Well, they weren't out of... They were higher ESR, but they weren't, like, bad or good. They were just higher, elevated ESR. I'm like, what the hell? The ones I took out were better than the new ones. And clearly they were the originals. They were not replaced. But nevertheless, I mean, you have capacitors that come from the factory as either higher or lower ESR ratings. The ones I put in obviously were cheaper capacitors, but whatever. What I'm saying is this. This machine doesn't really have any cap-related problems that I can see. I haven't really used it much, but I trust the caps that are in it, and if they go bad, I'll deal with them then. But so far, it's good and functional. I think what it is the oil-based caps. This machine doesn't have a lot of wear and tear. It wasn't used heavily and for a long period of time. Let's take a look at this keyboard. I mean, it's in remarkable condition. I don't see any wear on the space bar. Look at the size of that space bar. Look at that. It's huge. It's like the size of a MacBook Air. Anyway, like width-wise. But there's not a lot of wear in this keyboard. What does that tell us? Not only is there not a lot of wear here, but the CRT doesn't have any burn-in. Now, a monochrome CRT almost always have burn-in if they've been used for any length of time. In fact, here's how you tell. You take a flashlight and then you shine it on the CRT. And if you can see characters, you've got burn-in. This one, I see no evidence of any burn-in at all. Let me tell you what I'm getting at. So these oil-based caps from the 1980s, they had a remarkably long shelf life. What wore them out was being used. So if the machine had been used heavily, the caps would naturally wear out and die off. But if they weren't really used much, if the machine was only occasionally used, they're fine. I'm going to leave them the hell alone. And if it exhibited any symptoms of needing caps, like system malfunctions and errors and CRT problems that would indicate bad caps, then I would deal with it. The power supply doesn't make any noise because obviously it's a linear power supply, I think. I know V Westlife will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a linear power supply. So they're not a noisy power supply, meaning they don't create a lot of electrical noise. They're very quiet and very stable. But anyway, so I think I'm going to leave everything like that. I'm going to leave it alone. This isn't going to be like my daily driver, for God's sakes. This is going to be just a display piece more than anything. But I do want it to be brought back to functionality, and that's why I'm going to fix the keyboard. So I'll talk to you guys when we get on to that project. It'll be a while, so please be patient. I'm ordering the parts to fix it now. That way I have them when I need them. And once I get settled in my new home, then we'll probably tinker with it. That might be our next... maybe the first project to do in my new home. Maybe. Alright guys, I'm going to take off. I've got some parts to order, so let's get on with it.